Jamey, what's going on, man?
Not much, Tom. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm glad we could finally get this going on. The Ranger Angler, he got me your information and suggested you as a guest, and I had been following you for a while anyway, so I wanted to get you on. But you got an awesome story, man. You've done a lot of incredible stuff. How did all that get started?
Gosh, where to start? Well, I guess I grew up in New England. I grew up fishing since I was a little kid, just always had the bug for it, loved it. But along with that, just always loved, being in the outdoors and, I guess kind of playing cops and robbers and playing army. The two of those were just always passions of mine. My dad was a cop for a long time. He retired from law enforcement. My grandfather was in law enforcement. So, and another grandfather was in the military. So, always had that in and out of my life growing up, along with all the fishing. So I knew those were two things that I want to continue pursuing throughout my life. And as I got into high school, I knew I wanted to join the military. And, long story short, I wanted to go into the Navy. At the time, the SEALs were kind of pretty prominent. The Charlie Sheen movie had come out, and that weighed on me pretty big, just liking that special ops mission that they were doing. And that was kind of a path I wanted to take. But luckily for me, not luckily, nothing against the SEALs. They are great. And now that I've been in, I've actually worked with them a bunch. But my sister was dating a guy who was a prior Ranger, and he kind of was helped me along with my path. And, he steered me into going into the Army, getting locked in with a Ranger contract. And then from there, the doors are open. You go SDF, you could go, other special operations units, whatever it may be. So that's the path that I took. So I enlisted while I was in high school still, my senior year, got myself a Ranger contract. And, after graduation, I had my summer, and then I went in the military. And my first duty assignment was in Savannah, Georgia with 1st Ranger Battalion. And it was great. I absolutely loved it. That full special operations mission, airfield seizures, and, jumping out of planes a bunch, and, getting to play with all the cool new toys and guns. And, it was a great time. And while I was there, fishing wise, I still fished a ton, but that's really where I got the bug for bass fishing. Down south, bass fishing is huge in the Southeast. And I ended up joining a couple bass clubs and started competing, and it's being an adrenaline junkie, loving the outdoors, just, being in special operations, just rolling all that now into fishing, where you're competing for money, you're racing your boats to the first spot, you're trying to win a competition. All of it, that got me hooked. And, I was doing both, trying to be the best soldier I could be in special operations, in the Ranger unit at the time, and then competing in bass tournaments, and then my eyes opening up to, the whole bass side with, these big tournaments and these big name guys and sponsors and, all these fancy boats and equipment. So those passions just stayed with me, and ended up, buying a boat, competing in some tournaments. And then in about 99 or so, I felt like I was kind of hitting the peak of my time in Ranger Regiment, just with what I could do, the advancements and things. And I wanted to do more. So, I knew of some other organizations that were out there, another special operations unit that's at Fort Bragg. So I tried out for that unit, made it, moved to Fort Bragg in 2000, and kind of thought my fishing was going to get put on the back burner. I knew I'd be pretty busy with training and this whole new special operations mission. So when I got there, that was kind of it. My first year was a lot of training and learning what my new job was going to entail. It was very intense. And then once I got settled into my team, ended up meeting a guy who was just like me, had the bug for bass fishing, was fishing tournaments, and him and I hit it off. We still fish today, together some. Great guy. And I got back into it, and, started fishing tournaments again, was fishing with him a bunch. Then of course 9/11 happened, and then, work took over. Yeah. It was deployment. we were doing a lot of deployments, a lot of training in between deployments. So, I mean, overall, the whole global war on terror, I mean, I did 14 combat deployments. So between Bosnia, Afghanistan, Iraq, a couple other places in the world, you know, I was pretty busy with that, but still had the passion for fishing, was still trying to pursue it. You know, it was hard to be competitive at a tournament level when you're not home. So I did what I could, but it was probably towards the end of my career, you know, getting close to 20 years, when I knew that my deployments and stuff were slowing down as I finished, you know, some of my team leader time and got into a little bit more of an admin position as I got higher in rank. I picked it back up, and I was actually, I mean, that's when I started professionally fishing and thought, hey, I could make a career of this. And, you know, continued starting fishing the Bass Opens and trying to qualify for the elites, and, you know, doing all that while I was still active duty in special operations. It was a lot to juggle. Yeah, it was
how does
busy,
how does that work? Like, I mean, it seems like the real job is so demanding. And I mean, do you have time off, or do you kind of cycle, like, you know, you're super busy and then you have like a downtime that you can be fishing, or how did that work?
Yeah, it's you're busy all the time, but when we'd come back from a deployment, we do have cycles. So there's certain month period throughout the year where, okay, we're in this type of a cycle. So, you know, we're training really hard because we're getting ready to, you know, deploy. And then after we would deploy, we'd come home and we'd have some good off time, because it's, you know, we did a good stint of training. So we were gone a bunch. And then of course we deployed. So we were gone for months at a time. But then when we got home, we had a lot of good downtime. And if we weren't off training somewhere, you know, the focus was, hey, focus on family, focus on being at home, and, you know, don't come into work. Or if you do come into work, then, you know, go home as quick as you can. So those are the times that I really could put forth more effort into the fishing side.
Yeah. And you started to develop some sponsors, and we're planning on that. That was your road, right?
Yeah, that was my retirement plan. I mean, I saw it early. So I started gathering up sponsors. But I mean, at that time, you know, this is now, you know, 2012, I think, was the first year I started fishing the Opens. And I'd already had some sponsors prior to that. So I started early trying to get sponsors. Luckily, I had some good contacts in the industry. And, you know, once you know the deal, once you make, you know, a good contact, and, you know, you're working for that company and you're showing your worth, I mean, the word spreads, you know, and they're happy to introduce you to another company and another company. So I was very blessed, very fortunate on the sponsorship side, and, you know, had some really good backing, some great companies, still some great companies I'm still with today. And just continued with that as the retirement plan. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And so what about now? Are you fishing in what tournaments do you fish in now?
So this year, I kind of bounce around each year just because of my tactical training company that I had started up. But this year I'm fishing FLW Series and Bass Opens. So I kind of look at each schedule every year and see what's going to fit with my training schedule with my tactical company, and then kind of pick and choose what I'm going to fish.
Mm-hmm. So I gotta ask, man, you're involved in like the most competitive environment, I think. I mean, from what I know about what you were doing, it's the most competitive environment. It's literally life or death every day. And you finish that and you move to bass fishing. What, like, what is that like? Is that just like the breath of fresh air? And you're just like, okay, well, no one's shooting at me right now. That's awesome. I mean, what is that like? Like when you move into civilian life and into something like bass fishing, that some people are going to consider that to be super stressful and super hardcore, and it is, but not coming from where you were.
Yeah, it's weird because fishing for me is a couple different things. One, it's my therapy, if that makes sense. You know, all the deployments, all the heavy stress, like you talked about, you know, being at, you know, the tip of the spear on the military side, it's so demanding that you have to have something to, you know, calm yourself, basically. So the days that I can just go out and fish, non-tournament days, even practice days, are very calming for me. It's nice just to be out there on the water. It's very peaceful, just be in the outdoors and, make my own decisions at my own pace and just enjoy it. But really what's the other side of what bass fishing is for me is, when you leave that type of a job, a lot of guys go stir crazy because you're going at 100 miles an hour. You're always switched on. Your brain is ready. I mean, you're looking over your shoulder constantly. You're used to people shooting at you and, not wanting you there,
Right.
I mean, you're always on edge, and you still have to have something. You can't just shut that off because I did it for 21 years. So the tournament side of it really keeps that going because, as when you're in any type of a competition, you're out there fishing for money or whatever, and competing against others, that's kind of my combat now. That's where I'm able to out there and try to outsmart these fish or outsmart my competitors and, make the right decisions, make them quick, make them in a timely manner, and win, be effective, just like I was on the battlefield.
So fishing was that for you? What is it for other people? Like, I mean, do people just have all kinds of different things that they have to transition to coming from your background there? Like when other guys are getting out, what kind of things do they get into?
Yeah, it's interesting because, that place is so, I say, well-rounded that, you got guys from so many different places, backgrounds. I mean, a good buddy of mine that was there, he races motorcycles competitively. I mean, and he's unbelievable. I mean, every time he goes, he's in the top 3, at every race. But I mean, he, sponsors the whole 9. He races. I've got, another buddy that races and has won the Baja 1000. So we're still very, very driven to do things. Some guys are just, they start a business. I was just talking prior to this with a buddy of mine, ran into him at the post office. Hobo Forge, Jason is a good buddy of mine and he's making knives. He's been very successful with it, but he's a blacksmith, been a blacksmith while he was in, and now he's hammering out and making these, phenomenal knives that he's able to sell, now and do his business. So guys stay busy, but I do see a lot of guys that I was in with that, don't find something and they're the ones struggling, and you got to reach out and help them to get across that hurdle, because if you leave a job like that, going as hard as we were going and, for so long, that you have to have something. If you don't, you literally, guys get out and, that's the stories you hear about, it's guys that just can't deal with civilian life. Really, it's hard.
Well, it's almost the same thing, on a much, much more tame scale of people that retire and they retire, they've worked all their life and they retire and they don't have any plans afterwards. And it's kind of like, just sit around the house or whatever. And then, a couple of weeks later, they're, they can't deal with it. And then you have other people that retire and they work harder than they've ever worked before because they have no pressure. They're doing something that they truly love, whether it's for their community or whatever. And they go so hard into it. But part of that is coping with not having whatever it was that you had in your previous job. Like I think that you got to have something. You got to have something that you can kind of pour yourself into in some way, shape, or form. And coming from somebody like all the people that you are around, that's the only way you can do that, is pour yourself into it. You got to be 100% there or 100% somewhere else. And then when you just cut that off, that seems like a very difficult transition. Unless you kind of did it kind of slowly, like you had kind of an idea, like fishing. This is kind of what it is. And then there's like already it's out there, like the bass tournaments exists, the sponsorship exists. Right. There's this whole industry out there, and then you just kind of slide right in. That's pretty cool.
I'm very fortunate to have that. Really am.
Yeah. So what about the tactical company? What's that? What's all that? That's I looked it up. It's 1 Minute Out. That's a cool name.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. it took me a little bit to, I mean, I wanted obviously the right name, the right logo, put it all together. And it's, I'm not gonna lie, when I got out, I wanted nothing to do with anything tactical. I mean, I was burnt out. I mean, 14 combat deployments, since 9/11 was going just nonstop, and I needed a break. So right when I got out for 2 years, I did nothing but fished, and I fished bass, I fished FLW, I fished the King Mackerel Trail, the Mercury Pro Series. I mean, I was fishing anything and everything. It didn't matter. Saltwater, freshwater. I mean, I wanted nothing to do with tactical. But while I was in, I made a relationship with a company. So one of my last jobs, while I was still there, we have our own research and development section, which is very fortunate for us. We have our own budget to basically buy, the best gear. We need to be out there because we've got the peak mission. So we need to be out there with the best gear. We have our own section there where we go out to industry, and if something new doesn't exist, we'll make it. And I was fortunate to link up with a company called Core Survival, and I was looking for a helmet strobe light. So we use, out there, we're using a marking device on our helmet to mark ourselves, so friendly against enemy in certain situations. And some of it's visible light that you can see, and then some of it is IR, so you can only see it with night vision, right? The light spectrum is beyond what your eyes can see. So I linked up with this company while I was in and developed a product with them that we're, the unit's still using today, and a lot of the military is using this product. So I continued that relationship after I got out and started working for them. Well, going to some different tactical shows, working for that company, I was running into a lot of SWAT officers, law enforcement guys, and they were looking for training. They were starting to get night vision devices, and they didn't understand how to use them exactly. There just was that need out there, and I kind of felt that calling. Like, look, I have all this experience with tactics, with combat deployments, with night vision and lasers and all this. And these guys now who are, I look at as my brothers, as far as all the friends I have in law enforcement, my father was, my grandfather was. I'm like, look, I need to share this information. I can't let all this lessons learned and everything I learned, over all this time in the military just wither away. So that's when I, was like, hey, I probably need to start training guys. So come up with the idea, hey, 1 minute out. I mean, 1 minute out, to me, the whole philosophy of 1 minute out is, it's a cool name, but when we're going in on target, we get these time hacks, as we know. So you're flying in, getting ready to go, deal with these bad guys or whatever. And, you get that like 1 minute, right? So when you get 1 minute from the crew chief, everybody's 1 minute. And that's kind of when you flip the switch. For us, we're still kind of, we're in a foreign country. Anybody that's there, bad guys don't want us there. We're flying over their houses. We're en route to, to the hornet's nest, and we're still having a good time on the helicopter or the plane, whatever it is that we're flying in on. But when you get that 1 minute call, that's when you flip the switch. That's when you fire, everything's firing at 100%. Your senses are up. You're dialed in. You've memorized the whole area on the ground, from satellite imagery of where you're going, what your target is, where your entry point is, what you're doing. Everything is just done. You're ready to go. And that whole philosophy of 1 minute out, when I come up with the logo is, it's a cool name, but I want people to see it and just kind of think like, yeah, live like you're 1 minute out. So don't wait until that moment to be at your best. Live like that all the time. Be ready to go. And it doesn't just pertain to the military. I mean, it's, think about getting ready for a tournament. You've done your prep, you've done your homework, looking at satellite imagery, figuring out what the seasonal pattern is for the fish, and then, you're getting ready to go. I mean, that's when you're 1 minute out, you're ready. Whether you're going into a boardroom ready to give this brief to, the presidents of the company or something, you're ready. You're getting ready to walk in and nail that presentation because you're ready. You're 1 minute out. So just trying to live like that all the time. It's sort of philosophy behind it, but the training aspect, I mean, I travel all over the country training a lot of law enforcement and some other government agencies on night vision, tactics, some close quarter stuff, some rifle pistol training. And it's going well. I mean, there's a big need out there. I mean, obviously I have a unique background and lots of experience. So it's good to get out there and share that info.
Do you share info on the mindset, like what you were just talking about living your life that way? And is that part of it?
It is. I mean, it's good to talk to these guys about all of that. I mean, I've been hit up to do a little bit of public speaking, about it and kind of talk more on that philosophy of living like you're 1 minute out. It's to me, it's definitely, it's a lifestyle. It's a way for people just to get that extra little kick, and be like, okay, hey, yeah, let's, live like I'm 1 minute out.
So as that goes, that's very interesting to me. You're, that seems to be something that really would apply to almost anyone. Like living, what is that? Like if you were to apply that to just a general person, I mean, you mentioned the boardroom, you mentioned, doing your homework and all of that stuff, but living 1 minute out, like what is that? How does that apply to just your general business guy, your dad, your family guy? How does that philosophy apply in daily life?
I mean, it's a little different for everybody, I guess, but you have to dig it back into yourself, and you have to think of those situations where we've all done it. We've slacked off a little, or you're like, hey, I just I've got this to do or that to do, and well, maybe I'll put it off till tomorrow, or just procrastinating on things. It's like, think about it. You got to dig down and get that motivation, to just get out there and be your best, be your best at everything you do, and you're going to succeed. Everybody's going to fail. You're going to fail at this, you're going to fail at that, but don't let failure disappoint you. Failure is just a lesson learned. Okay, I learned how not to do that, so let me do something different and get to where I need to go. People that are successful in life and successful at, business or, fishing or military, I mean, it doesn't matter. Those people that are successful, they failed along the way, but they didn't give up. They continued to drive forward, continue to stay motivated and go for their goal. That's it, man. Just go after it, give it your best, live like you're 1 minute out, go for it.
That's awesome. I really like that. That's cool. I hadn't heard that, like 1 minute out. I looked at your tactical page and I saw that right away. And that's exactly what I thought of. I'm like, man, that's pretty powerful, man. Like when they call like 1 minute to the target or whatever, I mean, that's when like I guess, it might be 5 minutes for somebody else, or it might be 2 minutes for somebody else, or 30 seconds for another guy. But that's just like a super powerful kind of image of that 1 minute out. And then to bring that into your regular life is that could be very powerful for people. So are there any other lessons that you learned through your career, or you were kind of foundations of the way that you lived your life to make it as far in the military as you did, that also apply to everyday life?
Yeah. I mean, part of it is you can't do everything by yourself. Teamwork is huge. You've got to have, a good support team, but, surround yourself. And this is funny because somebody had just commented on something on my 1 minute out, like Instagram page. Cause I had recently put up a quote or something. It was a cool picture. It was some training that we were doing where we were on a helicopter. It's a little bird and it's a small helicopter. And it has these bench seats that are on the outside of the helicopter. So you're sitting two guys on either side, literally outside of a helicopter, and we're inserting onto a moving train. So we're going to assault this train. It's moving down the tracks. And these pilots are unbelievable from 160th that fly us. I mean, they are the best in the world. And these guys have to come in on a moving train. They have to come in, pitch sideways, and stay above that train because they don't land on the train. So they hover above that train as it's going, and they're flying that thing sideways inches off the train so that we can get off the helo to insert in and do what we have to do. But there's no way we could do that without them. And, them being at their best, doing their best that day. Because if they're not at their best that day, I mean, it could be catastrophic. So we have to rely on them. So there's a lot of times that you're going to have to rely on others to get things done, but surround yourself with those that, are the best at their job, to make you better. And I'm sure you've seen it. And I learned it on the fishing side was the more you can go fish with guys that are better than you, you're going to learn so much more and it's going to make you better. So, find those people around you, whether it's at your job or in life, those people that are motivating, that are good at this or that you want to be better at. Surround yourself with those people and it'll bring you up to that next level and help you to excel and get better at life and whatever the task is.
Yeah. There's a lot of, as I mature into more business, like I try to run my business better. And it's one of the things that, early on you kind of think, well, I've been doing all this stuff myself, so I just need somebody that can kind of do this. So immediately you kind of look towards someone that can just do the job. And then as I've gotten older and wiser and more mature, I'm like, you know what? I want to be the dumbest guy at my business.
Yes.
I want everyone here to be smarter than me, better than me, faster than me, better communicate. I want everybody to be better than me. And so then I start hiring that way of, put the ego aside, find somebody that can do what you do even better than you can do it. And man, what a difference does that make? And I would imagine in the circles that you were in, and that's I don't know, that's like going to the, all of a sudden you're going out of high school into the NBA or something. And it's like, now everyone around you is like the best in the world. And that's got to bring the performance way up, when you're.
It does. It's amazing. And I mean, little story. So going through the initial training, I mean, once you get there, you still have to, every day we say, every day is selection. You could be fired. It doesn't matter if you've been in that building for 14 years, 20 years. There's been guys that have been fired after that long. You're never just good to go. You always have to perform and you always, have to do the right thing. But going through training, you're there for 8 months or so just in this training phase. And, every day is a cutting day where you could be let go. And, I was one of the top performers on like one of our obstacle courses, but I knew I could be better. And I had a buddy who had been there, about a year before me that was just excelled at that. And I mean, I hit him up, there's a lot of times that you think you're the best, but there's always somebody better than you. You have to swallow that and say, okay, hey, I need your help. I want to get better. What are you doing? That's making you that much faster. Where can I improve? And I spent a day with him, him showing me little techniques and, it increased my time, that much more just being able to get there with him.
So in an environment that seems as competitive as that person is willing to spend that kind of time with you and show you those things, even though that may mean that he gets cut.
It's because you're all there, trying to get through it together.
Yeah.
And especially that caliber, when hey, that's a guy I want to go to combat with. Mm-hmm. I want to be next to him when we're fighting, and he's, hopefully thinking the same of you. And he's like, yeah, man, you need some help here. Okay, cool. Let me get you up to where you need to be. But hey, I need some help from you here. So, it's that whole teamwork aspect. Yeah. You're helping each other out because it's just going to make the both of you better and then overall make your team and your mission better.
Right. Do you find that that's kind of the same thing when you get into, let's just say the fishing world and you see the top performers in a competitive environment, and most people don't ask them because they assume that they will not help them. But if you go to a top performer and you ask them a question, a straight question, no beating around the bush, no gray area. Like, look, how are you doing what you're doing? Do you find that the top performers help or don't help?
You know what? It varies on the person.
Yeah. I mean, there's a personality trait there. Like some people are real standoffish on that, but I don't know, not everybody.
Yeah, not everybody, definitely not. I would say a majority of them will definitely tell you, and whatever you need to know. It's but you got to do that. I mean, you just have to, and I'll tell you, I do it. When I go to one of my tournaments, I'm fishing an open, and I get my teeth kicked in. I just didn't figure it out. I didn't figure those fish out. I've made tons of friends, throughout fishing the opens and the tour and everything, that I'm not afraid. I'll go right up to one of my buddies and be like, hey man, what did you do differently? Here's what I did. Here's what I figured out. How did you catch better fish? Like, where were they? What did you, and you learn. I mean, you have to come away from everything with some lessons learned, or you're not going to get better. So don't be afraid to ask. I mean, ask those guys. They're, majority of them on the fishing side are definitely going to let you know. I mean, there's some that are like, oh man, if I tell you, you're taking money out of my pocket, or you're learning some trick I might know. And there's a few little tricks, and they may not tell you everything, but they're not going to tell you anything if you don't ask. So.
Right. Yeah, they're definitely not going to tell you anything if you don't ask. That's for sure.
Yep.
Having a computer glitch here. So on the night vision, you've trained with night vision so much. How much has it changed since you first started training with night vision? The technology.
A lot. It's amazing to see, what is out there now. It's and most of it's the clarity. So when I first came in, I would say the earliest generation night vision that I used was like a Gen 2, but it was so grainy. It was like watching a green screen TV that just we're not talking cable or anything. Some of your viewers may not even understand this picture, but the white snow.
Yeah.
I mean, this
right.
is like, old school black and white TV, with rabbit ears, where you just had all that snow on there. And I mean, you could barely make out anything. Now, I mean, I'm clearly seeing and identifying people, hundreds of yards out. I mean, it's just amazing. The clarity is great. The overall like night vision tube, which is what brings in like a little bit of light and then it amplifies it inside the tube and projects it. That hasn't changed that much. The tube size is about the same. The technology is almost the same, but they've been able to increase the clarity. And then of course, the latest is this white phosphor. So the white is more of a grayscale that you'll see, and it's a better for your eye. You can pick up, contrast a little bit better with it. The clarity is better. So, night vision has gone from the green that we're used to seeing to more of a grayscale now of what you see.
So like you guys are getting the best of the best and the latest and testing out stuff that probably never even makes it to market because you're determining that it's not good or whatever. That's a bad direction to go. How far behind is the consumer night vision from, like, in all of these years? Say you've been using night vision for 20 years, that real grainy green. How long was it after you were using that until that's available on the consumer market? Is it like 2 years behind or 3 years? Kind of a lag.
It used to be a lot further behind, but with this, since we've been at war since 2001, and the technology now has changed so much, very rapidly, it's gotten more affordable. And I would say on the civilian side, it was more or less the affordability. So now it's pretty common, for civilians to have really good night vision. And you're talking, I mean, if you want a really good set of night vision goggles, like a dual tube setup, which is better than just a single tube, I mean, around 10 grand, you could have a really, really good set of night vision goggles that you could go out, hunting with.
Yeah. And that's what most people are using it for, like hog hunting and stuff like that, right? Yep. Or I guess, or varmint,
Yeah, varmint, yeah, hog hunting, coyote hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my interest is in night fishing. And I mean, we would go out, and there's like two schools of thought. One, I want every light on my boat off, because every light that is on is taking away some of my night vision. So I don't want my running lights on. I don't want the GPS on. I don't want anything on. And when I turn all of that off, I can actually see the islands in the distance much better. I can see, it looks like a dark silhouette rather than you got this bright GPS shining right in your face. I can't see anything. You can, the GPS is telling you where to go and you can follow that track. But, if you really know your way around, it's better just to shut everything down, which, I never did that, by the way, Mr. Coast Guard officer. I never actually ran without running lights. But, the night vision is very interesting, not just for running, but for fishing, because so many of the fish the main fish is the tarpon. The tarpon is a very, very nocturnal fish, and they're more active at night than they are in the day. We're catching them in the daytime, and it's really beautiful, and you can see them in super clear water, and there's like this hunting aspect to it. But really, if you want to really catch them, it's at night. And so I always thought one day the night vision technology is going to get good enough and cheap enough to where it would make it like a real activity that you could do. Like you could put night vision goggles on your clients and go fishing, and not just like soaking a pinfish under a cork. You can do that at night real easy. If you can just find the spot, you can go do that and it's cool. But still you're missing something because it's inky black everywhere you look. And it's cool because the tarpon are eating crabs on the surface and it sounds like a war out there. But you're not like casting to a fish that you see. I want to know when you think it would get cheap enough and good enough to where you could have 3 sets of these things. So the guide could have one, both clients could have a set, and then you could go out and actually see tarpon like coming down the beach and rolling, because you would be able to see that they're coming out of the water, right? You'd be able to see that with night vision goggles. Oh yeah. Right?
Yep. Yeah, you would. When will it be cheap enough? Depends on what you want to put. Yeah. You can get, so here I would say is the biggest setback right now to what even the best technology that's out there is probably the hardest factor for some people to do, or anybody if you were to throw it on clients or something, is the field of view. So our human eye has about 200 degrees field of view. That's our natural vision. When you throw either a single tube or a dual tube night vision goggle on, you're down to 40 degrees. So you go from seeing all of this down to kind of looking through 2, little tubes. So there's a lot more scanning, and there's a depth perception issue in there a little bit too that takes some getting used to. So, it'll be tricky, and some people would just get frustrated with it, but being able to see a fish and then target right to that fish and get the bait right in the area where you need to. But as far as the technology goes in the affordability, I think when digital night vision really makes the leap, and it's out there. I tested some digital night vision probably close to 10 years ago. I tested a set out, and that was kind of like the first introduction to a digital, night vision setup. And the picture's great. The technology is there. The biggest issue with digital is the refresh rate. So the human eye is about like 1,000 hertz. So if we think of our TV that we look at, everybody now has a HD TV or 4K TV at their house. And most of our TVs, are 240 hertz refresh rate. And when you're watching a good action movie, you can still see like a smear when they're looking somewhere, and panning. So now our human eye is about 1,000 hertz refresh rate. The technology is just not there. So if you're looking straight through a digital night vision goggle or a night vision setup, and eventually it'll just be in like a screen where you have a good wide field of view like we're used to. But if you're looking straight, it's fine. But as soon as you start trying to pan and, you hear that tarpon, eating that crab over to your right, and you quickly look over there, you're going to have this big smear until you lock in on it, and then the picture cleans up. So until that gets better, that's when the cost will really come down, is once the digital gets out there, then there'll be a lot more advanced.
So will that look more like a set of VR goggles, what we see as VR goggles now, or will it look like a set of sunglasses, or what do you see that looking like?
Eventually, it's just going to be like a pair of sunglasses. It's going to be, it's going to be on a screen that's nice and small and just right in front of your eyes that you'll be able to kind of see through and, pick up your night vision and everything with it.
Wow. And
some of it's out there. It's just not ready yet.
Yeah. And so do those, like, when it moves to digital, do they still kind of stick off of your helmet or your face, like inches off of that? Then it's tight.
Yeah, it's right on it. But you have to have, so when it goes to digital, you still have to have the camera basically that's picking up the signal. It's just projecting it onto whatever screen, lens, glass you have. Yeah. The issue with our night vision goggles right now, why they, stick out so far, is inside of there is where all the technology is. So that's where you have your night vision tube. That tube is the thing that it's an analog tube that's doing all the work. So it's gathering in, 1 or 2 particles of light, and then it has to amplify it and make it.
And so you have one of those in each eye right now?
Yes.
And then can you adjust that like to the strength of your eye? Like a lot of people have varying eye strength.
Yeah. So you have an objective focus out on the end, just like you would a camera lens or something. And then you have what's called a diopter on the back end. And depending on the goggle that you get, some of them have a diopter adjust, so you can adjust for your correction right there, or they have these little, to make it a little thinner, they have a lens, a diopter type lens where you can put a -5 or 10 or, whatever, and you just pop the lens on for what you need.
So then when you're, 2 questions, right? Actually, when you have the night vision that sticks off of your face, like several inches, and I guess that's gotten smaller and smaller over the years because they used to be like really big, like in Step Brothers when they had the night vision. It was like huge. How does that affect like the sight on the gun? Like, are you using special sights for the gun, or what? How does that work? Because that's quite a bit off of your face. Yeah.
So it's most of the time, what you want to do when you're using night vision is we use an infrared laser. So there's a laser module that's on the weapon that you zero. So you have like your day sight, which is what you'd use normally to shoot. And then you have a laser that's on your weapon. So when you need to shoot at night, you don't have to look through any type of a sight. You just turn the laser on, and then the laser is zeroed.
I got you.
So that you can engage. Yeah, okay. That's the quickest.
Yeah. And so now we have this technology on a lot of boats now. I know you were running it on Eric's boat when you're doing the Kingfish tournaments. I know he had the FLIR cameras and stuff like that. So you have the FLIR cameras that are displaying on the GPS. For somebody that's going to seriously look into night vision, like a Florida Keys guide, or somebody that duck hunters that are, this is their business. Like a duck hunter is a good example of somebody not in the fishing world that's going out at ridiculous hours. It's pitch black dark. They're in a swamp. There are logs and stuff. They would be a good candidate, I think, for night vision. Like, mostly they're a good candidate for having a John boat and like a motor that can hit a lot of stumps, because that's usually the way it goes. But seriously though, would they be able to navigate better? I mean, let's just say it's not a John boat, it's a bay boat or a skiff. Do you think someone like that would be able to navigate better with night vision goggles or with the FLIR setup on their boat?
It depends on the technology, because the thermal stuff, the FLIR cameras are really good. I mean, they're almost giving you, and there's a bunch of different like color palettes you can pull up on it to increase it. And they're giving you a really good picture. The biggest difference with the FLIR is you have a different light spectrum. So you're looking at heat, you're looking at thermal. So that spectrum is above regular like night vision. So to sum it up quickly, like if you look at a chart, you have the lower frequencies are color. So you've got like your blues, I mean, basically like the rainbow. So your blues, then it gets into your greens, and then you have like, your reds are towards the tail end of it. And then that's where, after red, that's where it gets into IR. So that's infrared. And that's what is beyond what our eye can see. That's the next spectrum of light that we're using our goggles for. Well, beyond that is our thermal. So that's where the FLIR and those cameras come into play. And I have a set of goggles that is both night vision and it has a thermal viewer in it.
Yeah, that's
so
what
I can overlay.
Ask. I would think that
I can overlay
sure.
thermal and night vision together, which is a whole nother ball. I mean, a story I give in my classes, I'm literally sitting here talking to you right now because thermal saved my life in combat. The quick story of it was it was Afghanistan. We came in on a target, helicopters landing right outside the house. So we're here. I mean, there was no doubt about it. We climb up, and we're overwatching this big overgrown field. The grass was like 4 feet tall. I mean, it was just totally overgrown. And I'm standing on this wall, I'm about 10 feet up in the air, standing on a wall, and I'm backlit by the sky. I'm on the radio. I started to hear some gunfire. One of the other teams is in contact, and I want to move. I want to go get in the fight. And I'm on the radio. I'm talking to my troop sergeant major. I'm like, hey, we're here. We got nothing. Where do you need us? And as I'm talking, I look down in the grass, and through the thermal, I see just an outline of some heat. So I quickly adjust the settings, bring the thermal up even more. And it's just, slow motion. There's somebody coming out of the grass with their AK pointed right at me. I mean, he had me dead to rights because I was backlit against the sky. I'm loud on my radio because I wanted to move. I thought we had nothing right there. He was hidden, night vision, couldn't see him because he was hidden in shadows. So you still have shadows with night vision. Because I had that thermal on, the thermal picked him up. It picked up that heat signature. And then as he popped out of the grass, I was able to get a cleaner picture of, hey, there's a guy, there's an AK, he's pointed right at me.
Wow.
So there was, that threat was right there, but just with night vision, I didn't even see him. So if it wasn't for that thermal, having that additional capability, I never would have saw him. So going back to like the boat stuff, I would say for your average, hunter, boater, whatever their situation may be, the first thing that they need to look at is, can I get to where I need to get to just by using white light? If they're not worried about spooking game or, hey, like the ducks aren't even flying yet, so they can use white light to get where they need to get, then yeah, save yourself $3,000 to $10,000 because you don't need it. But for safety reasons, if you don't have that ability or you can't use it and you're just going in the absolute dark, then night vision is going to be your cheaper route, and that's going to help you. I mean, you can pick up a single, a PVS 14. It's just a monocular. It goes over just one eye. You can pick those up for a couple grand, and have it on a little helmet mount or a little head harness. And yeah, it's going to be great. You'll be able to see a lot more, get yourself to where you need to get to safely or quietly so you're not spooking the game. And then, for those like, the FLIR, some of that stuff is great on the tournament scene because, you're out there with multiple boats. There are times that you're heading out because you can be at your first spot, in Lions Inn or at, 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. or whatever. So guys are going out at dark. So without radar or something to see those other boats, you'll pick them up, definitely pick them up a lot better with FLIR, with that thermal, because of the heat of the engines and the different temperatures of all the environment around them between the sky, the water temperature, and then that boat and the bodies on there. It pops that much faster, because you'll still have different shadows. And if it's a pitch dark night or environment, night vision has to have some type of ambient light to amplify it in order for it to work. So if you're in a pitch dark room, and I do this example in my classes to show the advantage of thermal. If you're in a pitch dark room, night vision won't do you any good, because it has no other light. Now, if the stars are out or the moon is out, great. But if it's like an overcast, zero illume night, you're not going to be seeing that much with your night vision. And that's when you need we use those IR lasers. We also have IR pointers or like floodlights. So then you'd have to have these big, like a lot of the saltwater boats and even the freshwater boats now have like rigid lights on them and, these big spotlights to light up. Well, you could have some of those in IR and now they'll illuminate in that same spectrum, and and your night vision can see it. So now you've created that.
You wouldn't be, if you weren't wearing night vision goggles, you wouldn't be able to see that.
Nope.
So nobody sees that running down the lake or in the ocean.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that. I mean, I just don't know much about night vision, because I've thought seriously about getting it, but not that seriously, to where you're like, okay, now you have this floodlight out front. Because that's really the problem with my navigating is I don't like the lights. Like Rich, he thinks totally different. He has this giant rigid light and he throws it out there, and I'm like, I don't know how you see anything, man. All I see is the white deck of the boat. I can't see anything in front of us. And he's like, oh, there's a marker way out there. I'm like, yeah, but there's 1,000 things that could be in between that marker and us. I like to shut everything down and have no light and use a red flashlight or whatever, so that, if I have a headlamp, I use a red headlamp so that it doesn't destroy the night vision. But, the thought of that big light going out there, I just can't see anything, unless you're just, idling around the marina or the harbor or something. Of course you can see a boat in front of you, but that night vision, the goggles, I think that would be, it would be of use. But you were mentioning like the average guy. The only people that are going to want this are like the extreme freaks out there. Either the guides,
we all know those guys.
Yeah, either the guides or the duck hunter that's like, okay, first light's at 5:45, so we're leaving at 11:30. So we make sure we're going to get that spot, and it's like you're going in the dark, and then we're going to sit there for 5 hours. Maybe they could sleep in a little bit if they had some night vision.
Yeah. Well, I've been out there with Arik, and we're creeping out at 2 a.m. because you can be at your spot, just lines in at a certain time, but we're creeping out there so nobody sees us go. I mean, he's making sure nobody's following us, and so being able to kind of stealthily get out there but still safely be able to see everything around you, and use technology to do that.
That has to be pretty funny for you as you're creeping out in this 39-foot yellowfin. It's like we're really not creeping out. Like anyone wanted to can see us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's funny. All right. So what about your tactical company? What's the future of that? What do you see the future of that being? Is that going to be where you place your focus, or are you going to go do more fishing, or what do you see happening in the next couple of years?
I don't know. I'm just kind of taking it as it happens. With this whole COVID-19, I mean, I've had 6 classes that I've had to cancel or reschedule just starting this year. So, that took a hit, but luckily, I'm in North Carolina, so we're still able to get out and fish. So that's, more of my focus has been on fishing right now. But I'm actually leaving next week for Michigan. I'll be in Alpena, Michigan for a NVG class. Okay. So it's starting to kick back up, which is good.
So but, in the elite military, COVID-19, I'm sure that they're not shutting down. What happens, right? I mean, I don't know. This is something that you're the first person that I thought might even have any sort of of an idea of what happens there. But I mean, like, what does happen during coronavirus?
Yeah, it's totally new for them too.
Yeah.
So, they've had to make a lot of adjustments, but, I guess what I can say is, they're still fully up and operational. They're just keeping distance. You gotta, there's certain guys that are on call. We always have guys that are on call, ready to go. If something happens in the world, you're ready to leave within hours. You're on a plane, go on. So that, all of it's still happening. Everything's still operating, but it just kind of comes down to who are the essential people that need to be there. If you're not essential, you don't need to be there, then, hey, take the time, spend it with family. We're just training all the time and gone. So you take advantage of, okay, spend some time
at home. What about just like the training? Like I just had a couple of my son's friends just went to Ranger school, and they just graduated right before this happened. So like in the situation like that, are they postponing something like that, or like a sealed, a buds class or something like that? Does that get postponed?
No, as far as I know, and I've heard, everything for that is still up and going. And I don't have the exact answer.
Right.
I haven't been tracking, but I do know like what they have done, or my perception is probably they get those new students in and they've got to go into quarantine. So they keep everybody together, they monitor them for X amount of days, and then the class will kick off as normal.
Yeah.
That's, I guess being a sergeant major, that would be my decision on how I would handle it is, the training still needs to go on. We've got to get recruits through. I mean, guys have obviously had contracts and are dates to come in and get this stuff done. So if you're not canceling or postponing these courses, then, you just have to be smart about it. So you get these guys in, you monitor them, you don't really do anything, let them do a little bit of PT and maintain some stuff. But then, once everybody's been here, they're isolated, they're healthy. Okay. And then you can kick everything off as normal and just continue to monitor, as the classes go on.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it certainly can't come to a halt. That's for sure.
Right.
But it does seem like everything's kind of opening. I mean, really, I'm seeing big openings, and it seems like the public is definitely ready for it, and their memory, very short memory on
people don't like to be told what to do and to be told to stay in your house for too long.
No, but I mean, 2 weeks ago, man, you'd be walking towards somebody and they walk 40 feet away from you and going big. Now It's like everybody's forgotten about that. They're just right back to whatever.
Yeah, I think everybody is ready to get back to life and get back to some normalcy. I don't think it'll ever be normal again, but maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's for the better. You just keep a little bit of distance, be a little bit more cautious on, just personal health and space. And
I like the fact that people wash their hands more. I've always been a hand washer. Well, I haven't always been a hand washer. I was a hand washer when my kids were really little, and we were, they would start getting around other kids and going to, a Mother's Day Out program or whatever. And it was like a year where everybody in my family was kind of sick. Like we would get a cold or whatever, and then my wife would get it, and then I'd start feeling better, and then one of the kids would get it, and then the other kids would get it, and then, it would kind of come back around. And for about a year, it just wouldn't go away. Like everybody was getting always had something going on. Until the kids got a little bit older. And then it's like, okay, look, when you come in, wash your hands. And they were like, okay, we come in, we wash our hands. And you know what? It all went away. It all went away. And we all washed our hands. But when the kids got old enough to understand, like, okay, this is something we need to do. Like, you wash your hands. And it all went away. It was amazing. And after that, I was like, okay, washing my hands, like pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
every time before I eat anything, and then like I don't eat in the airport. Like I just don't.
Right.
Like, there's just too much stuff in there. But I don't know. Now everybody does that.
I found a product, and no sponsorship, no relation, no shameless plug here. This Combat One. And it's a guy, Matt, he's former military. He works for the company, and he's given me, a bunch of product. I give it away at a lot of my classes, but they make a product. I mean, it's kind of like a hand sanitizer. It's a foam, but it's an all natural product. It's no alcohol involved. It's not going to dry your skin out or, any of that, but it actually like kills. I mean, they've got FDA testing. It kills like MRSA virus and all this. I started using it like religiously. He was at a like SHOT Show or something with us one year, and he brought it, and just you're at all these trade shows, you're shaking people's hands, you're meeting so many people, you're meetings. There's always a funk going on, and everybody's sick afterwards. So he gave us some, and just throughout the day you're just using it. And now, I've got one in my boat, one in my car. There's one in my wife's car. We've got them in the house. Just this foam cleaner, and I use it religiously. And I'm going to tell you, I have not been sick or had a cold in like years. It just all comes down to, washing your hands, but, using something and just being cautious of your hands being dirty, because that
product is all natural, and it kills MRSA. Because my boys, I was a wrestler, my boys are wrestlers. And that was the thing, man, that you get this funk on you, like ringworm or MRSA or all this mat-borne stuff. Like a wrestling room is just disgusting. It really
full
is.
Of bacteria.
It's much better now. When I wrestled, they like to turn the heat up to like 110 and, and then there were no fans in there. It was disgusting. But now it's like all nice and the lights and stuff are in there and it's, the doors open occasionally and they don't have super heaters in there, but still lots of kids get all that mat-borne stuff. We were using that defense soap, which is a natural product too. But I don't know, like, I guess it's okay to kill everything on your skin as long as if you think you're going to get MRSA. I don't know if it's good to like use antibacterial soap all over your body. Like, I don't think it is. Right. I think it's bad for you. Yeah, really bad for you. Mm. But anyway, I'll check out that stuff. That Combat One.
Combat One. Yeah, and they make wipes like it's a bath. I mean, a lot of military. I mean, we've got some, at the unit. But it's the foam, and then they've got these bath wipes. They're basically like big baby wipes, but you can take like a complete bath. If you're in the field or something or on the boat, all day long. I mean, you can just grab them and just kind of wipe yourself down, and they're nice, thick, big, kind of baby wipes, and it has that same stuff in them. But it's refreshing. Just clean yourself up. So yeah, I use it quite a bit. I've got them on the boat.
I bet they're totally sold out.
Yeah, they might be because of what's going on.
Yeah, there's probably not one anywhere.
I know
the military probably bought all the remaining ones. So it's a good plug, but it's not going to.
I know. I wish I got something out of it, but he's a good dude. I mean, it's a great product. Yeah, hey, if check it out, definitely. I'm telling you, it works. So
so
if you can find it.
Does your tactical company do civilian courses?
I do some. It depends. I mean, I've got a private class coming up next month. I have a civilian night vision class and a rifle pistol class in October in Texas. I don't do a lot of them, and it's. I'm busy enough with the law enforcement. I mean, I'm turning down some business on the law enforcement side just because it's so busy that trying to find the time to do the civilian ones. If I have to choose, nothing wrong with training civilians, but you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
There's times you get total drastic, 3-gun shooters to somebody who's never even handled a weapon, in a class. And that makes it very challenging. It takes take a lot more of your time than others. And I like to keep my classes small. That way I have a lot of one-on-one time with each student, to make sure they're getting, a lot out of the class. But so I do them, not that often. I mean, just check out my website, 1minuteout.com. I've got my training courses up there. People can see where they're going to be. I mean, anytime I get a new class, I'll put it up there, so that people can sign up. But right now, the only one I've got that's open is in Grandview, Texas, which is just south of Dallas, Fort Worth area. In October is both a night vision class for civilians and a advanced rifle pistol class. Both are 2-day classes that are going on in October for that.
Gotcha. All right. So that's your tactical company. How do people follow you for bass fishing?
Bass fishing, mostly, Instagram, Facebook, Jamey Caldwell. You can just Google and you'll run across them, or, JC Pro Angler is my Instagram page. You can follow some of that. And I kind of mix, both. I mean, I probably put a little more effort on my 1 minute out page. The tactical stuff is growing a lot. So I'll throw some fishing stuff on there too. But I kind of mix them up a little bit and throw some on each one. But 1 minute out and JC Pro Angler. Okay.
All right, man. Well, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's fun to catch up with you, and I learned a ton about night vision. Mostly that I probably need a really nice set, and next time I have $10,000 laying around, I'll get a really cool set of it and a floodlight that nobody can see. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
Do you think the tarpon would see it?
That's a good question. Wow, it would be worth doing some research.
What if you got all set up? You spent $20,000 on this floodlight and the thing, and you just look like a giant spotlight out there, and no tarpon came.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because I've never done any research to see like what different light spectrum, because some animals can see a wider range of light than the human eye. So that would be, I guarantee you there's some studies done.
I know who to ask. I had this scientist on the podcast. Her name was Lori Swikert. She was fantastic, and she's basically done all of her work has been on fish vision, like what a fish sees
wow.
and how they see it. And even like she's saying like fish can kind of see, with their skin, how a fish will, like a dolphin will get real colored, like they'll go from blue to yellow. And then, she's like done some studies where you lay them down on a certain color and then they turn that color like a chameleon. And she's saying that they have kind of like, I don't know, see like in quotes with their skin a little bit. Pretty interesting stuff, but she was fascinating, man. She had incredible information, but that's a good question. I'll have to ask her if a tarpon can see on the infrared spectrum. Maybe that's why they're hard to catch.
Yeah, I would definitely ask her. And, worst case, you use the spotlight to get to the area, and then you go blacked out, and they're not going to see anything from your night vision. I mean, you're just looking in that spectrum. So as long as you don't have any other spotlights or lasers or anything pointing in that spectrum, then you can still, creep in on them, and you should be good.
It's a whole new sport.
But yeah, it is. Let me know when you want to go. I can set it up.
I'll go, man.
I'll bring the night vision and
bring them.
The boat.
There's no better way to get the new sport going than to actually try it and see if it works.
That's it.
There's been a lot of things that I've tried like that I think are going to just work so good, and they just don't. But that sounds like one that might. That might. All right, Jamey, man, thanks a lot for your time, and I appreciate it. You guys go follow him. Got some really cool stuff, and we'll see you next week. All right, out.